Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam, and I'm about to start the show. And I always tell you about my book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, how it's a bestseller, how it will tell you and show you how attackers look at you and teach you the technique of targeting yourself so that you can actually come up with better defenses, real awareness, and plans of action where you can't change things. And, I'm always talking about that. I'm always starting the show with that. So I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to tell you about The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. It's a book of pictures that you can give a child, and there's no words in it. It's pictures, and in each picture is about 5 or 6 lessons of security, awareness, and communication. It's good for kids, for children, really 2 to 8 years old, and learning disabled children. Now, you don't have any children? Get it anyway and give it to a child that you think needs it. And then tell the parents about teamlittlebigs.com, because that's where the lesson plans are. You give the book to the child, the parent or the teacher or the guardian goes to teamlittlebigs.com. They get the lesson plans, and then they literally allow the child to go through the pictures and work it out as they help them. It's unbelievable. I've seen it work. With kids that are even as young as 2-3 years old, they start to get it. By the time they're 5, they understand things like don't play behind a vehicle. Ages 1 to 5 is a very important part of a child's life. They learn more than they will ever learn in the rest of their entire life, and especially between the ages of 2 and 5, and I take it all the way out to 8, children can start to really understand why they should or shouldn't do something. So go get it, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. And don't forget, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival for you, your business, your schools, your churches, whatever needs to be secured. This will help you understand more about how that can happen. And it'll also show you how you yourself can gain more awareness in your everyday life. Available anywhere books are sold. And let's start the show.
The truth has arrived.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And welcome back. Happy Monday. And I hope those commercials at the beginning aren't pushing people away. But I got to tell you about these books because it really does make a difference. I've heard some incredible testimonies about both Sheep No More and the children's book, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. But what I want to talk to you about today is a couple things, all right? Again, the news is the same every week. I spent a couple days up in Albany this weekend, and where the capital of New York is at. And, of course, we didn't see Cuomo, but we had a little rally about why he should be ousted. And you can see that speech. I may play the speech here in a minute, but you can also find it on YouTube and disseminate it as you wish. You can go to my playlist, Speeches, on Jonathan T. Gilliam's page, and you'll see it there amongst some other speeches that I've given. And this was one of the most important rallies I've been to. There wasn't a lot of people there. I think there was probably maybe 100 people there. But it's on the steps of the Capitol building. And why was it so important? Because this is the first rally that I've been to since January. Well, really since before January. I mean, I would say since December probably. But after January 6th, most things fell off when it comes to rallies for conservatives and for the right reasons, and it really has just fallen off, and people feel hopeless. So what's interesting is the people that came out there are not hopeless, and they are fighters, and they want to continue to stay in the fight. So it was nice to be out there and be amongst people. And so I talked about Cuomo and the reality of things that are going on with him. It's no surprise. That's not what I really want to focus on today, but I will say this when it comes to that in particular, and I guess I'll go ahead and play the speech here in a minute, but it's very important for not just the American people, but for the people of the world to understand what's happening in this world and how things that occur in nature and things that are uncontrollable, that you're just not going to be able to control some of the things like this virus or viruses in general. And because that's the way God intends it to be. He wants it to be that way. And there's going to be very little you can do about some of these things. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine several years ago about free will and does it really exist? And I believe it does exist. This particular individual had never been in the military before, so they didn't understand what we know that have been in the military, and many who've been in the military don't even understand what they actually know, but that just because everyone goes through the same type of training, right? Literally millions of people have been through boot camp. Hundreds of thousands of people have been through SEAL training. And every person that goes through one of those particular trainings, they go through the same training. Like, you don't have people show up. SEAL training is the hardest thing I've ever done. Ranger school is probably the second hardest. Officer candidate school is probably the third. Well, graduating college was extremely difficult. Yoga is extremely terribly hard for me because I have no flexibility at all. But let's take SEAL training, for instance, right? Everybody that shows up to SEAL training is going to go through the same process. It's not like each individual has their own SEAL training, right? BUDS is crafted to weed out everyone but the best of the best and the people that showed up there to succeed. And it's not a place for dreamers. It's a place for people who dream and then do. There's two different things there. People who go through life dreaming about what they want to be, and people who understand their dreams and then go out and achieve those dreams. But everybody goes through the same training that shows up there. But while you're going through the same hurdles, the same obstacles, while you are being tested exactly the same and facing the same cold water and the same 7 or 8 mile runs, you have an individual choice to face that in a different way than that guy over there or that guy over there. And that's where free will exists for people who are trying to achieve, for people who are going for a goal, for people who are trying to make something out of their lives. And so people believe that when they say it's God's will for this or for that to happen, I say, well, don't tempt the Lord thy God, right? We are meant to go through these things that we've gone through in life, but how we react to those is our collective free will. Now, you have individual free will, but I do believe as a nation, as a citizenry, we have a collective free will. We can choose to stand together and then make decisions together or not. And every once in a while in history, the collective, or the collection, I should say, I can't believe I made that mistake. I'm not going to edit it out. I'm going to leave it in there because I want you to understand that even I get that wrong sometimes. The collection of free people. A collective is a group think. We are a collection of free people. So the collection of free people every now and then in history will come together and stand for the right reasons, and they're never defeated. They always win. But people don't understand that, and they don't realize that it is your free will. Now, this virus, for instance, we've made a lot of different decisions in this nation, whether you realize it or not, as a citizenry and really around the world, to follow blindly completely incompetent and stupid people and power-hungry narcissists and megalomaniacs. And you can see the difference in what a leader is in DeSantis down in Florida versus Cuomo in New York. Cuomo is a megalomaniac. He's a bully. He is a sexual predator. He is somebody who is completely narcissistic and void of any understanding about what being a leader is all about. It's really about humbling yourself. Jesus himself washed the feet of his disciples, and to show them that in order to be in charge, you must first serve. You are a servant of the people that you lead. if you don't provide for them and you don't give them what they need to be their best, and you don't walk with them daily to guide them where they need to be so that they can perform, you're not being a servant to them, and you will eventually fail. And when you look at DeSantis and how he's ran Florida and understood people and stood with them and allowed them to be free and make their own decisions while they were facing this virus, you see a man who's a leader. When you look at what was going on with Cuomo throughout this entire time, and many of Gretchen Whitmer, Phil Murphy in New Jersey, what you've seen with these different politicians is absolute incompetent leadership, but the people, not knowing that they have a collective free will, simply doing whatever they're told, no matter how stupid or ridiculous it is. And when I was there in Albany this weekend, and then as I was going through the news, one of the things that hit me about this virus is that, at least they're reporting it in some of the news, I don't believe it fully, is that regardless of how most of these states went about handling the virus, it was the outcome is the same in most states. Now, when you take the nursing homes and that type of the elderly and you set that to the side, the numbers are pretty close to the same. I mean, the death rate's pretty much the same. The infectious rate is pretty much the same. It's when you add in the stupidity of these leaders, that's where the death rate increases, or you see where people have died that didn't have to die. But why is that? When I kept seeing this, I kept seeing this thing that was popping into my head that said, everyone will, just like in SEAL training or in boot camp, everyone will go through the same test, the same hurdles, the same obstacles, but it is how you face it together or as an individual that is going to determine the outcome. And I truly believe that this virus, whether it's man-made or not, that there's no escaping these viruses. And I think 1918 showed it, and we've seen it throughout history, that there's some things you can do to mitigate it. But when it is a fast-acting, highly contagious virus, there's very little that you can do to stop it if you have a world that is traveling, a world that is moving, a world that is working. And when you look at how DeSantis handled it and how the Democrats handled it, what you end up seeing is that even for the places that locked down everything, made you wear a mask, sometimes they're asking you to wear 2 masks. They just literally shut down businesses and ruined lives, versus places where they didn't do that. The virus still got there. I remember hearing about in 1918 during the Spanish flu that one town did exactly what the Democrats did here. They locked the entire town down. Everybody wore masks. They wouldn't let anybody stop on the road as they were traveling through if they didn't live there. They just wouldn't let them. You just had to keep going. And as it turns out, the mailman was delivering the mail and gave it to everybody. And they had this massive death rate in that town. There's going to be a way, if it's God's will for it to get there, it's going to get there. And it looks like this virus was inevitably going to be spread. Again, whether it's man-made or not, it was out there. And once it's out there, it was going to spread. And very few people in leadership positions gave any thought to the fact that they had to contain the virus as well as they could, understand that there may not be anything that they can do about it. That shouldn't have allowed them to stop trying to do anything about it, but they should have managed it. And they should have known about this long before it came there, because it's not like viruses are a mystery or slow, or that they're that you couldn't predict that they would be here and already have certain things set up. Where am I going with this? The way they reacted, and it was 100% reaction, was just simply to take away free will, to take away your freedoms, to take away your businesses, to take away everything without even a thought of the long-term effects of ruining people's lives. They were afraid hospitals were going to go get overran. So what they do, they, instead of creating very simple triage clinics for people who don't really need to go into a major hospital and sending those people there and then treating COVID patients in there, or setting up places where COVID patients could be completely isolated. And in many cases, they had these, like in New York, they never used them. They stuck sick people in with the elderly. There's only one way that you can look at that they were okay with losing elderly people, that they had made a decision that they were going to compromise the lives of the elderly for whatever reason. I don't know, because they didn't want to waste the space in other places. I don't know. But there's no rational decision for it. But here's where I'm getting back to on this whole thing is free will of the people, right? When the Virginia governor said, Ralph Northam said that they were going to start mucking away with the Second Amendment, the people of Virginia, 20,000 strong, took up arms and stood around the Capitol building and pressured their legislators not to go with that, and they had results. At the same time, though, Ralph Northam said that it was okay to take a baby and set it to the side after it's born and decide whether or not you're going to keep it or kill it. Nobody did anything. Nobody riled up and went and stood at the Capitol or around hospitals and said this will not happen. They didn't do anything. So the collective free will of the people in Virginia at that point in time, same thing in New York, really around the United States, was to do nothing. I'm not having an abortion, so what should it matter? That's what a lot of people thought. Churches said, well, you shouldn't do that. You know, it's wrong. But they didn't stand up. You didn't see the millions and millions and millions of Christians standing up for unborn life, or for babies that are born for that matter. You didn't see it. Still hasn't happened. I've been to several rallies for life here in New York, up in Albany, and I'm always shocked at the few people who show up there. Maybe 100, sometimes, I don't know, maybe 400 most. But overall, you get more people coming out to support President Trump or in Democrat rallies or riots in Portland than you do people standing up to protect children's rights to live. That's kind of shocking. But you know what? It goes back to free will. The people of this nation do not exercise their collective free will. They think, this is what I'm being told, that's what I have to do. And by and large, you know, you're right, because the collective will does not exist. It is something that has to be cultivated. See, your will to do what's right, a lot of the times it's instinctual. You take away a person's rights, they're going to instinctually react. If they've had rights, they're going to end up having a very visceral reaction where they are on the defensive. As if you took a dog and beat it for no reason, it would eventually try to bite you, most likely. And that's the way people react. But when it comes to the collection of, I keep saying the collective, and that's something I never say. Again, I'm leaving it in here because I want you to understand my mistakes so you don't make them yourself. The collection of free people, they do not know how to function. Actually, it's a good example as well. The left is a collective. They're a collective mindset. It's one mindset for all the people on the left. They do exactly as they're told. On the right, we are free thinkers. We are a collection of free people. The left, as the collective, understands how to work as one. On the right, we're also damn individualistic that we can't seem to get on one page. And when there's something like babies being killed, people's lives being ruined, elderly being killed, everything around Cuomo has to do with killed or dominated. It's really strange. And the collection of the right does not know how to work together in a free thinking environment, to come together and choose to stand for one reason. To choose to stand together, they just won't do it. The only time that really anybody does is when it comes to voting. And the majority of people that come out there and stand together as a collection of free people, they only do it because it's easy. It's easy to vote. You show up and vote. Or now they're not even saying you have to show up. You just fill out your form and send it in, which is terrible. I mean, we used to have to actually use a pen to mark in something, and it was a paper ballot. Great way to be. There should be IDs where you have to go down and get your voter ID. They have everything set up for you. And so people, it's so easy they take part in it. But what most people don't realize is to be a collection of free thinkers and unified together under one cause it's actually very easy. In fact, the more people you have, the less you have to do. If you had 70 million people in this nation that said, we're not going to take it anymore, and we're literally going to stand here and do nothing as a whole, you would take up so much space that you would shut things down until the government, you could surround whole Capitol buildings. You could, if 70 million people showed up in Washington, D.C. would shut down. You literally could walk everybody out of there. It's not insurrection. You're wanting to reset the government to what it should be. But that's not going to happen, most likely, because it's almost as if the right is saying we have to be enslaved before we ever stand up together. And even then, the majority of them would say, listen, at least our slave owner gives us good food and a place to sleep. We better not make a mockery of this, or else we won't have that. Because down the road, Joe and Bonnie Sue, they only have the floor to sleep on. That's the way the right thinks. They're a bunch of freaking wimps. They won't stand together. They're narcissistic and self-centered. Yeah, I said it. That's the problem. On the left, you got a bunch of communists, leftist weirdos who think they're know-it-alls. They think they know everything. They know little. They're totally incompetent. They think because they open and crack a book, they know everything. And they will do exactly what they're told because they believe in the collective. And they give everything over. They just give it all over. But on the right, you've been given free will. You understand freedom. You understand the importance of freedom, and you take full advantage of it, and you never give back. That's the problem. Everybody wants their piece of the pie. Everybody wants to be a celebrity. Everybody wants to be on TV and talk about their cause, sell their book. Yes, I sell my book. Other people use a cause to sell their book. Or somebody has a relative that dies in war. All of a sudden they're an activist. Next thing you know, they're on Fox News or they're on some other network and they're talking about health insurance. Has nothing to do with their cause. Because the right is self-centered. It's individualistic. And the people have forgotten the power of unity, of the collection of free people. Most people don't even know that because they never had to think like that before because they were born free. And I use this word a lot. A lot of people don't, but freeborn. A lot of people say I'm born free. That's what happened. You were born free, okay? You are free because you were born in a free country. But the reality is you are freeborn. And if you look at it that way, not that I was born free, but that you are a freeborn person, maybe you'll start to understand that we are a freeborn people, that we need to stand together as freeborns and stand together for what's right so we can sustain our way of life. If you just say, well, I'm born free, born to live free, then it means that's your goal in life, to be free. Freeborn means that's who you are. It's what you're made up of. You're a freeborn person. And if you take that for granted, you will lose it. And that's what is happening to the right. They are losing it because they took it for granted. The left doesn't even care. The left is not concerned with freedom. They're concerned with the collective mindset and what the collective says. So my advice to everyone, if you're on the left, you better understand the reality of what you're asking to lose and what you're willing to lose. And on the right, you need to understand that if you don't stand for what you believe in, you will have your ability to stand taken away. So going up there this week in Albany really put this into perspective for me. And it should be shocking you. I hope I'm explaining this clearly because it's in my mind clearly. Sometimes I have a little bit of difficulty getting it from my heart through my brain and out my mouth. And I do make up my own terms. I'm from Arkansas. It's what we do. But I have to convey this message to you. It's what was given to me today to give this message to you. Now I am going to play the speech that I gave. Let me pull it up here. If you want to hear it, and you can either, I hope you share this podcast, and also that I guess we're going to see how many, well, actually, you know what? I'm not going to do this from YouTube because it'll probably have commercials. I'll just do this straight from my computer. But if you can share this podcast, which I know you can, share it with everybody that you know. We got to build the numbers up on this podcast. I plan on going back out on the road and meeting some more of you again. We have to get ourselves back up. We have to get back up. We have to start getting united again. And that's what my goal is this year, to get back out on the road and start meeting with people and getting them rallied up for the right reasons. Not that you have to have a celebrity there, but that you do it for the right reasons. I have to get some sponsors to get out there, but that's what we need to do. All right, so let's go to the speech, and then I'll come back and close the show.
Or other places, but you're in for a treat today. So welcome, Jonathan. We can't wait to hear what you have to say.
We need to up that applause a little bit, I think, don't we? There you go.
Well, it's great to see that people are still coming out after January. You know, so many people tucked tail and they went home and they just don't show back up. People think that in order to have a...
By the way, you can hear a generator going on in the background, so it sounds like an airplane's hovering. And also, out of all the groups I've ever been at, this group was the loudest group. A lot of people really focused on what I had to say. There's a lot of people had a lot to say themselves while the speech was going on. If you go and you make the commitment to go to these rallies and you're listening, and somebody's up there speaking, listen to them or go off away from where they're at so that you don't distract them, because most of the people who show up to these, they have some that have insight. They're really trying to help you out here. Okay, it's very annoying a lot of these times.
Choice you have to win every election, or you have to have representation in government. I don't know how we can spread this message that the only thing that really matters, whether it's representation in government or whether it's a victory, it all comes down to the people. It's really your strength. That's what matters.
That's right.
What I saw over the past 4 years was a president that was doing a pretty incredible job of doing what he said he would do once he got in office, and then when he got in office, he did the majority of things that he said he was going to do. He respected police. He respected the military. He respected you. He even respected the people who didn't like him. He had no problem telling them that he didn't like them as well, but he respected their right to say what they wanted. But the entire time that things were looking great, things were going on in the background. The organization of the Democrats didn't just start last year for the campaign of Joe Biden. The Democrats have been organizing for over 80 years. There was a Time article where they described, it was basically a confession letter of how they organize and how fast and how quick they can organize massive amounts of people. Now, it may sound like I'm going, this lecture, I don't like to say a speech, this lecture is completely against Democrats. It's not. Because here's the reality. For 80 years, while these extremists, and they love to use the word extremist to describe patriots, but the reality is the extremists are on the left. Those are the people who want to overthrow your Constitution. Those are the people that want to change everything. Those are the people that use color, gender, race, sexuality. They use all these things to divide everyone. They're not trying to fix anything for anybody. You know, we have this saying when I used to be in the FBI, you may love the Bureau, but the Bureau doesn't love you. It's a terrible place to go to work, to be honest with you. You never want to work for a place that says that. But that's the case with the Democrat Party. You may love the Democrat Party if you're a Democrat here, or if you're an activist that's here, but they don't love you. They haven't done anything to solve any issues in the inner city. Neither has the Republican Party, for that matter, to tell you the truth. Politics in general have done nothing to fix anything. Why? Because that's not how they get reelected. That's what they think. You don't fix a problem, because if you do, you can never use that again to run for campaign. That's the way they think. You have to realize that the game is being played on you. It's not every 4 years or 2 years. It's not every year with the local elections.
It's every day.
It's always being played on you. If you think for a second that people like Cuomo ever had your best interests at heart, you're wrong. And what Cuomo has done, it didn't just happen in 2020 with the elderly homes or with all these different individuals, these women that he has preyed upon. What Cuomo is, this dynasty of failure, is a game that's being played on you constantly, and you have to realize this. And just like you showed up here today, you have to show up every day. The citizens of this country have to start showing up. They have to start standing together. Amen. They have to start seeing the reality of what's being played. When they do that, you're going to start seeing that whether you're left or right, I don't even know what that means anymore. But basically, even the most hardened activists on the left, they just want what's best for this nation. They just see it in a different light. And they're going down a path of socialism, which leads to communism. And on the right, you're going down a path that leads nowhere, because you follow grifters. You follow politicians that say, we're conservative, we have conservative values, but yet they never do anything to stand up for conservatism. You never see anybody in Washington, D.C. or in Albany. You never see these people stand for the Constitution and say, my life will be on this ground, and I will give up my life before they hurt your Constitution, your freedoms. You never see that from these people. So what's happening to Cuomo today? Hopefully he'll resign. But here's the reality. Cuomo's not leaving. Cuomo's not in trouble because of what he did. He's leaving because of what you all did. He's leaving because of what Voices for Seniors, of all these people that were doing Back to Blue and would come out there and would stand and chant over and over to get Cuomo out of there, to continuously put heat on him in the media and to point out what he's done. That is why Cuomo's in trouble. And that's what you need to take away from this. Stop being played. Own the game. And the way you own the game is by taking a stand together. There's some incredible people here who will do amazing things individually, but ultimately, it's when we stand together, it's when the people stand with one another. Forget about liberal and conservative. Forget about Democrat and Republican. Stand for truth. Stand for the, listen, you may be pro-abortion, but stop for a second. Think about it. A governor who says that it's okay to kill a child that could live on its own is the same governor that preyed upon women that work for him. It's the same governor full well knowing and told us that the most vulnerable people to COVID are elderly people before or while he was putting sick people in with elderly people. You are the answer. You are the one that has to own the game. And you are the ones that can restore this nation. Start looking for common ground to stand upon. Start looking for those who will stand with you and start pressing so that the same thing that's happening to Cuomo can happen to all these people. Gretchen Whitmire, Phil Murphy, all of these people. The worthless, listen, I'm going to say it right now, the worthless legislature in this building that gave Cuomo all the power that he wanted. That's like the people in California giving Charles Manson the keys to their house. Stop being worthless. Stop worrying about your career. Start standing up for the people. And you all, start standing up for yourself. Amen. God bless you.
So there you go. That's the speech. And it's interesting, while I'm listening to that, it kind of reflects what I was talking about today, but a little bit differently, because I didn't really think about the stuff that I'm discussing today about the collective until after that speech, and then it really started to hit me. But when I walk up there and give these speeches, a lot of the times I don't have an outline. I don't even really know what I'm going to talk about until I get up there and I feel what's going on in the crowd and I feel what's being said. And that's the way it was when I got up there. There were Republicans that were there. There was Black Lives Matter people out there that were demonstrating, and I wanted all of them to hear that. That's why you didn't hear them talking when the demonstrators saying anything when I got up there. The people you heard talking were people who showed up there for the right reason. They just didn't know how to shut their mouths while somebody else is talking. But what's interesting about Black Lives Matter is when they really started making a lot of ruckus with their megaphones and stuff was when the one black guy who's running for governor got up there and talked. How ironic is that? That's who they chose to interrupt. But that's the left. That's what they do. So I'm going to leave it right there. And I want you to ponder this. Maybe I'll cover a little bit more of this week. If you have any questions or you want to make a comment about this, you can go to my Twitter page, @Gilliam_Seal. You can find me on ConnectZing under Jonathan T. Gilliam. If you're not a member of ConnectZing, I would advise that you go do that in case these other platforms go down. I'm the chief marketing officer and kind of the one of the co-designers for the universe that we're building there, the free speech universe. That's ConnectZing.com. One word, ConnectZing. And also Facebook, of course, Jonathan T. Gilliam. I no longer have an Instagram page because they canceled me for no reason whatsoever, and it is what it is. So, and also YouTube if you want to go see that speech. It's also on Facebook and stuff. But you can find me on there. You can direct message me. I'll leave those open, or just tweet at me or whatever, and I'll try to answer any questions or look at your comments. What do you have to say? If it's a good one, then we'll talk about it on the show. So that's about it. Hope you have a great Monday, and I will try to be back tomorrow to do another one. If there's no news or nothing inspires me, then I'll be back Wednesday for a show. I just hit the wrong button. That's what that was. So what I hope that you take away from this episode of the Experts Podcast, and if you haven't subscribed to it and shared it, I hope that you do. What I want you to take away from this episode is that the collective mindset of the left, well, they're not free thinkers, and we know that, but what they are is unified in their thought, and they will act when they're told to act, and they don't have any fear in their actions because they've worked for well over 80 years to get the people in positions they need to support them. But the right, the conservatives in this nation, have to realize, yes, you are a collection of free thinkers, but you have to start choosing to stand together or we're lost. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here.